Hi. Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Short Bus Debate Club. Happy Monday that happens to fall on a Tuesday. And today, Darren and I are going to talk about, what it means to be a citizen and what it means to be a consumer, and can they be mutually exclusive, or can you be both? I don't know the answer to that. But this show was kind of Darren's idea, so I'll let him kind of kick it off.
Well, the reason why I was interested in this question is that I think that, honestly speaking, because of the way that our system is so, it so much focuses on self-expression through what it is that we purchase, that sort of like bullshit Jeremy Bentham notion that somehow or another, like the utilitarianism that ties to that certain notion of political economy, that again, that your self-expression is through what you buy. I think the concept of being a citizen is lost. Like I said, I worked on the window at the post office for about a decade now, and one of the places where this really started to hit me over the top of the head was when people from my father's generation. My father was born in 1940. These were people that were born, right around World War II. They don't have an actual memory of it. They were too young to remember it, but they benefited from the great financial windfalls of what happened in the American political economy in the aftermath of World War II. And what would happen? So, like at the post office, people that were in a management position for a long time, they would get bonuses, and I'm talking about like higher management, like upper and upper middle management positions. They get bonuses if the overall cost of production went down, and the only real way that they could bring the cost of production down is to have somebody go in and measure, say, like the lengths of the routes, right? And if they could, so say you have like 72 routes inside of one station. If you could get them to where you justify eliminating 7 routes in that station by tacking them on to other routes, then you bring down the overall labor costs in those spaces. So they would end up getting bonuses for this. So like if you did that throughout the district or throughout like a big sorting facility, they would get big bonuses. And what ended up happening, because they literally do this like every 5 years, at least what happened in Denver, I can't speak for other locations, is that the routes got to where they were really, really long, and they didn't hire anybody inside the post office. When I got hired, it was the first time that they were hiring anybody inside the post office new for about 8 or 9 years, from 2006 forward. And when that went down, there was a gap where you didn't have anybody new coming in, because they were, again, trying to keep the labor costs down so that they could get their fucking bonuses up, right? So the long-term consequences with that idea, when you're working in this space where you're continually trying to shrink the overall cost, is something is going to suffer, and that means that it's going to be service. Ultimately, we're playing a numbers game, and it's going to be service. So people, to get back to what I was saying, people from my father's generation would come in, and the way that they express themselves is to come in and to bitch at you, right? And then if you didn't give them the response they want, they would always ask for a supervisor, and they would bitch at the supervisor. Now, if you have so many people working for you, say you got like 282 business or labor hours of work that you have to fill in a certain day in terms of carriers, but you've only got enough, you're working all the carriers 12 hours a day, and you've only got enough to fill 180. Well, then you're rolling routes at that point in time. There's no magic fix. There's no way to reorganize anything like that. You're basically in a system at that point in time that's failing. and it's failing because of the way that they applied those. It's essentially austerity positions earlier. You make everything real lean with regards to the production. So in that moment when I would see the post office functioning like that, um, it was clear that we were being constructed more like a business inside of the post office as opposed to being constructed as a service, that which is what our historical position was for leading up to this, and what made the post office really great in the United States, I would argue, for a long time. But in the midst of that, when these individuals would be coming in, and it's not just people from where I would see it at first would be the people from my dad's generation, and they just come in and they just bitch at us, and they think if you complain and if you squeak the loudest that you're going to get a change, and that's just not the case. And I think that that's the way that most people in the current system think that you're going to create change in a political way, because they don't understand that there's a distinction between what it is when you're functioning in relation to a civic space, which the post office used to be, right? I would argue that it's not anymore. And there's a difference between functioning in relation to a civic space and a consumer space. And since everybody's hell bent on their Amazon orders and all that shit, nobody really understands what it means to be a citizen anymore. I'm not sure that I know what it means to be a citizen anymore. I mean, you like Brian talks about a ton. He pushes for voting because we know that's something that you can do. He pushes for writing, like letter writing campaigns, and that's one way to communicate too, like, or calling up your Congress people, whatever. That's another thing that you can do. But after that, does it just go straight to you got to go out into the streets and be I mean, we don't even know how to function collectively anymore together without it being something that becomes bastardized. And I mean, that's just my starting point for citizen versus consumer. It was in those interactions that I had between myself and that specific demographic of customer when they were coming in, because we're essentially hamstrung. We can only do what we can do with the number of people that we have.
Well, but that's not just with the post office. I mean, I know that it's more evident to you because you're at the post office every day. But that's everywhere. I mean, with companies like Kaiser, healthcare isn't as good as it once was because all of their doctors are paid bonuses on profitability. Um, it's happening over and over and over again, regardless of what vertical market you happen to service.
But a company is different than because I agree, like police, like for instance, if you go in as a police officer right now, they're very, they don't have enough. I mean, in spite of like whatever it is that people want to say, they're spread very thin. Because yes, you're right. Austerity is been the name of the game.
Well, I think it's more along the lines of greed than austerity. It's more like some asshole who knows it's not going to do any good, comes up with this new plan to, roll back pricing or cut costs somehow. Food costs are down here, labor cost is down here, whatever. And so they end up making these fat ass bonuses. And a lot of these guys, these executives or managers or whatever, depending on if you're talking public or private or quasi public, then most of them stick around a couple of quarters so they get their big fucking bonus and then they leave.
Well, I don't think that, like, to be sure, I don't think austerity is it's different than greed. I mean, I think anytime you're making an argument to lean something down, particularly when you're dealing with a public institution, like, again, okay, so maybe not even police, but teachers, public schools, again, they don't have enough, you're not paying them well enough, you're not giving them enough tools to be successful. So they've been, and there's nobody that's getting bonuses above them, but that concept of austerity, of a more lean because still the people that are organizing this, they think about it as less, less money in, but we need to get at least the same output or more. So, I mean, I just like the contradiction that you said just a second ago too, like quasi. I mean, what I mean, like quasi public private. What I mean, what the fuck does that even mean? Like I said, I mean, of course, like I asked that in the post office's context because it looks to me like we are here to.
Well, the reason I said it for the post
Uh-huh.
office is because, both you and my uncle for a long time told me a lot of the inner workings, and I know that, for the most part, you guys were the only government entity that was self-funded. I mean, you sold stamps, so you weren't taking money from Congress or
At least until we were the 75-year pre-funding thing in 2006 happened.
so that's why I said quasi is because, you've got all of this money coming in because you're selling stamps. But the government still has their fucking nose in your business around every turn. So that's why I said quasi.
No, but it's good because it shows the contradiction. I mean, that's all I'm saying because the crossroad between public and private gets really messy when you're dealing with an institution like the post office, where where.
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, citizen or consumer or both, or neither. I mean, I never, as much as I fucking railed against, people that didn't vote and, always tried to tell people they need to do this, this, and this, I never considered myself a citizen. I am a citizen. I was born here, but it wasn't like that was one of the things I identified with. And it wasn't up until very recently that I identified myself as a consumer. And that was because I was nothing but a consumer. I mean, I was just buying shit to buy shit. No rhyme or reason, just buying it. Well, you told me to listen to this interview. Some guy wrote Angrynomics.
Mark Blythe was the guy. Yeah.
And he made it sound like the difference between a citizen and, at least from, the portions I listened to that you told me to, he made it sound like the difference between a citizen and a consumer was how much money you had made making investments or in the stock market or whatever. So that to me means that there are a very limited number of people that would identify themselves as consumers when I think that it's a much wider base than that. I mean, because the ones that are consumers are the ones that get fucking excited about Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday deals and how much money they can possibly fucking spend on Christmas presents for people. Those are the consumers as far as I'm concerned, because most of the people that I've known throughout my life don't make any money off of investments or have a portfolio.
That's definitely not what Mark Blythe was arguing there. It isn't just about their investment. He was just talking about self-identification in that moment, that we don't know how to even identify ourselves as citizens. That the concept of a citizen is, like I said, yeah, and I don't want to quabble over definitions a bunch.
No, that's fine. But what I was getting at is that, even though, again, up until probably the last 10, 15 years, I never considered myself a consumer, but I never considered myself a citizen either. Probably the only time I would have ever identified myself as a citizen is if I ended up in some fucking foreign prison somewhere and I would say, no, I'm a citizen of the United States. You need to,
Well, then how
let me out.
all the stuff that you did with regards to voting? I mean, what are those functions of? I mean,
No,
yeah,
those are functions of a citizen. That isn't what I'm saying. I know I'm a citizen. It's just self identification, I guess. I never would have considered, like, if you would have said, okay, list the top 5 things you would consider yourself to be. What are they? Citizen would have never been in that top 5.
I think that you're missing the bigger point that I'm trying to. This isn't. It's about how you act in a social environment. Period. Right. If how you act in a social environment is just through what you purchase, then you activate yourself in that social environment through your consumption only. Right. We like and when I asked the question about citizenship versus consumerism, the system that we are involved in right now has done a very good job of making the acts that we would identify. That's why I said the acts that we would identify with our, I mean, of course, people stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and there's all the nationalist garb and bullshit that people do in relation to the concept of citizenship. But like like 1727, like Ben Franklin, like he developed this thing with some people that were like-minded with him. They weren't all in the same business spot, but they're called juntos, right? It was called a junto, or so I don't even know where the fuck the name came from. But these guys came together and they would sit around and they would talk about how to better their environment, how to better themselves in relation to their environment. There was a social, there was a shared social set of goals, right? That these people maintained, and they didn't all think the same things, but they would come and they would debate philosophy. They would argue. They would they would interact with one another. We would never do anything like that for the most. I mean, sometimes people do, or if they do it, they do it only with people like for like a lobbying firm or something like that. It's only again, it's only for their ability to better themselves in the context of their financial capabilities. It doesn't really have anything to do with understanding that we need to continue to cultivate certain social relationships collectively as a society. Otherwise, the bonds that make that society exist in the first place start to fall apart. So, I mean,
No, I think that for the most part I agree with you.
mhm.
All I'm saying is that I mean, do you consider yourself more of a citizen or a consumer?
It doesn't
I
matter.
know it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I'm just asking the question because I think that people are going to kind of want to know. I mean, I understand we're talking about this thing in the abstract, and if we're doing these things, then that makes us citizens. And if we're doing these other things, then that makes us consumers. And then there's probably a small wedge between the two where somebody can be both.
I'm not arguing that whether there's a crossover or there's not a crossover. What I'm suggesting is that we have constructed a society where the concept of citizenship, it only exists in extremely superficial ways. Like if I'm sitting here talking to you about this stuff, like we're doing this. I mean, on some level, because we're not getting paid for this, we're doing it because presumably because we're both stubborn motherfuckers and we like to offer our thoughts up to the world. And because we hope that some other people would engage us on that and that there might be like a ripple effect, that you might like this is in my estimation an act that would be moving towards a concept of citizenship. But again, it like my point is generally speaking that the kind of citizenship that would be necessary for us to survive, if anybody really thinks that they're that in this world right now, I mean, I just don't see it. Talking like arguing over Twitter. I mean, there might be some social spaces where things like where people are trying to build up these social spaces, but I think that writ large, like 99.9% of all activities, and that includes when we vote, or letters that we write. Like, I just don't see us as being very healthy, and having healthy social intercourse for the sake of healthy social intercourse. Everything always goes back to the consumer position. That's the vast majority. I mean, so when I say, am I a citizen or am I not a citizen? Well, I'm doing this with you because I'm trying to engage in something that might help to stimulate something like citizenship. But like right now, fuck no, man, we don't have anything going for us, and we socially don't have any way to even. I don't think we even. That's why I said, like, voting, letter writing or phone call campaigns, and then like going out on the streets. I mean, like, isn't there some other stuff that's supposed to be in between where we're.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that some of it is, like they used to say, well, it takes a village to raise a kid, right? So obviously
Yeah, HRC even wrote a book.
you can't do a whole lot of that kind of shit now, but I mean, everybody is so fucking closed off now. When I moved into my first condo, and this was in 2001, none of the neighbors said hi or kiss my ass or anything. And I would argue that, while you're being active in the political arena might make you a citizen, I would say that even more so, it would be, helping the people in your neighborhood, in your city, and whatever. And going back to that, we are not we are the world, but I mean, seriously, just being part of each other's lives in a more meaningful way, I think is a part of citizenship that doesn't have anything to do with voting or writing letters or doing any sort of grassroots campaign. It's just making sure that, I don't know, other people know you're there. I
No, I like this. I mean, this is more to the point of what I'm trying to get at, because it's. I mean, if you go and like you said, you move into this place and you see that you got this lady who lives downstairs that uses a walker. She's a real hard time getting her shit in from the store. I mean, things like that are simple spaces where we can build, but even still, like, it's not just. It is like when I said that we don't have citizenship, I'm honestly telling you, like, because the last time I went to a protest, right, I swore I never go to a protest again after it, because there were all these things that were cultivated in this real bullshit way, to where the cops were interacting with the people that were running the protest, to where they moved us to the certain spot. So when they shot the tear gas off, we would all disperse across this field, and it was clearly planned. Like, they herded us all into this spot, and the act of civil disobedience had disappeared, because it was just more of a symbolic act, which is what, like, everything that we do, like, for the social space in our existence, is for those symbolic acts. It's not these concrete expressions, like the things that you would do inside of a community where you're reaching across a space, and not just helping an old lady, but doing things like that, to where you're comfortable enough with the people around you to say, these are my shortcomings, or this is what I'm working on, and what do you know, that's what you're doing. Oh, to where there's something triggers, to where, like you said, you aren't just going into your cubicle, lived existence, and hooking up to iTunes or TV, whatever.
And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what we're all doing now.
Mhm.
I mean, it's It's really kind of disappointing. And really, if you look at it, I mean, I thought you were going to say something entirely different with your protest thing. And it just reminded me because, I think before Black Lives Matter actually mattered, they were selling fucking t shirts. I mean, and I understand that all of that has to do with it because you got to raise some funds to help with all of the things that go after it, but it seems like their main goal is to sell fucking
No, it
t-shirts.
became a brand. I mean, it did. I mean, and of course, all that stuff happened, in Missouri first, and but by the time the 2020 came around, yeah, I mean, it was a brand, and yes, I know, we both know, like, if you're going to try to do something, you have to do something to reproduce the condition so that you can exist from day to day, which means that you have to. But there's a fine line between. There was one Black Lives Matter organization that got like 38 million dollars donated to them. In California, they had the leader of it had taken a huge chunk of it and bought a $4 million house. I mean, like, you're not doing that. Motherfucker is not serving Black lives by getting a $4 million house for himself.
Not unless he's asking a lot of fucking black lives to come and live with him.
So no, and that's, I mean, but that question that you just brought up really hits at the heart of what it is that I'm like, because the consumption aspect dominates so much of the field of what it is that we're doing. Like, the second that you start doing anything, and trying to have success, and if you start to have success, so like, say we started to reach people, right, on this, and all of a sudden we were getting 100,000, a million listens a day. Somebody would immediately try to start using us to advertise. People would try to get it, but but we need you to calm that down a little bit. Not so many fucks.
Yeah, tone this down. Yeah. Don't say that.
I mean, it becomes, again, like, and also because we're doing it on these platforms. The platforms have their own set of interests in relation to what it is that, I mean, there's such an impossible line between where we're at in terms of the way that consumption position dominates our sphere of everything, that we don't even know how to make a meaningful, to create a meaningful social space, even when it does present itself. And we watch the guy fucking get choked to death for 8.5 minutes. I mean, that's a horrible thing to motivate a bunch of people, but that's something where, of course, people should be responding to it.
But I don't think any of them were ever motivated by that. I think they were motivated by the shirt. And I know a lot of people would argue that they are one and the same thing, that the act spawned the shirt and the shirt is part of the act. But that isn't the fucking case, man. These are people, and I don't know where it started. So there was an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer was going on an AIDS walk and he refused to wear the fucking ribbon. And these guys were getting so pissed. What's the matter with the ribbon? He won't wear the ribbon? I'm going to talk to him. And Kramer ended up like running away. But he refused to wear the ribbon. And I remember that was the first nonprofit I can think of that was really merchandising based on something. And the ribbon thing was so fucking successful that every nonprofit afterwards, first it was fucking yellow ribbon because it's fucking ball cancer, and then there was
breast cancer, the pink one,
pink ribbon for breast cancer, and there's a fucking ribbon for bullying, and a ribbon for fucking epilepsy, and a ribbon for all of this other bullshit.
It's like the rubber things around the wrist
and
too.
The rubber bracelets. Yeah, I mean, they sell all of this stuff, and I don't know. I don't think it makes anybody more aware of what they can do or what they should do or anything. I think that they're fucking fashion accessories now.
I mean, it is really hard to find like an authentic act. I mean, when the first book that uh, I was exposed to with Zizek was Welcome to the Desert of the Real. And at the very end of the book, he talks about the concept of the political act, right? And the political act is this idea where you make a choice, you do this thing, and there's a risk to it, right? Because he suggests that you can't do anything if you're attempting to change the world that you're a part of, and be risk averse. Like it just doesn't work like that. He's just basically punishing the liberal left because they want to have this revolutionary moment without the revolution, and that's just not even possible. But we do seem to be caught in this space where we don't even know how to commit to a moment like that in a concrete way. Like we don't even know how to, because I mean, I got this, this thing for what was the yellow one that Lance Armstrong?
Yeah, it
Was it
was
testicular cancer or something like
or
that, or
prostate
prostate
or
cancer?
some.
Yeah,
It was testicular, I
yeah,
think, but
because he had that. So, but I mean, everybody and their fucking mom. So like, it's this concept of solidarity, but it's like you're saying, it's this fashion accessory concept of solidarity. Whatever it meant by the time everybody's got one on, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It just means that people are conscious of the fact that Lance Armstrong got cancer, and it might have been from doping too much or something.
right. Yeah. And I don't know what color bracelet you need for that.
For doping too much?
Yeah.
You'd have to balance them out then, right?
Yeah, I mean it's fucked up, and then even if they do find something that works, something that people seem like they want to be a part of, or at least buy the swag,
Mm-hmm.
some other organization basically steals it from them. So Black Lives Matter, then pretty soon Blue Lives Matter. And look, I don't want to start some fucking cop black thing on this show.
But you're right. It's that once the thing becomes commodified, it gets, because it's in our subconscious. So
Yeah, and it's
everybody,
just like
yeah,
the ribbons
yes,
or the bracelets.
it's exactly it is. Yeah, and if anybody can't understand what he's saying there, it doesn't have it could be, you just plug anything in there. Indian lives matter.
Yeah.
The
Yellow lives matter.
yeah, Martian lives matter.
They do. They're important. It's just, I mean, so yeah, I mean, from all of the things that we've mentioned, the first 30-some minutes of the show, I would say none of us are citizens anymore. I mean, we're naturalized citizens, but that's it.
Yeah. Yes.
We don't seem to care what's going on with our neighbor. We don't seem to care what's going on at the White House. We don't seem to care if this group is actually doing what they say they're doing. We just don't fucking pay attention to it.
We don't, and we just don't know how to have an honest social relationship with one another.
Well, that one's tough. I know that one's tough.
But that's the reason why I wrote the Juntos. He wasn't old when they did that. He was a relatively young guy still, but and they didn't know what was going to happen in 1776. They had not in 1726. They had no fucking idea, They had an idea that they wanted a better world. They had some sort of delusionary sense in their mind that if they got together with people that were also wanted to have a better world, but weren't exactly the same as them as an individual, that they could talk to one another and think about things and maybe become better problem solvers collectively, And that, I mean, but like at some point, like we gotta have like we tried to do those study groups, the last time we went and did it, it fucking exploded. Janae did her presentation on capitalist time versus communist time, and one of the people in the I won't name names because what's the name of that's my favorite Seinfeld episode. What was the restaurant that they went to? You name names. Elaine, you name names.
Oh,
His dad was blacklisted,
yeah, I
and they would go and eat
remember.
at that Chinese restaurant all the time.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the restaurant though, but I know what you're talking about.
So either way, this person made all these comments about, well, so where's the non-white people's voice in what it is that you're talking about? Of course, that totally brackets the fact that the person who
Said it was
wrote,
white.
well, no, he's I can't remember, Pakistani and German or something like that. I can't remember, but Janae is half Lebanese, right? So I mean, she's clearly, I mean, in that by category, she's non-white, right? So, but either way, um, he turned it into this identity politics thing and didn't say anything about the substance of what she was talking about. But we were meeting up, we started meeting up like once a month pretty regularly. We all have regular jobs. We'd read, some section of stuff. We come together, we talk about it, we argue about it, try to have a good discussion. Sometimes it worked, but that time it was so bad that it killed the. But we need somehow or another, and it can't just be like academic like that. It has to be aimed towards something else, you know, that has practical space in explicitly tied to what, not just implicitly, explicitly tied to whatever you're trying to succeed at.
Well, I think even if it was just academic, I mean, granted, you'd have a hard time finding a lot of people that wanted to write papers, but I mean, at least you're doing something. The thing is that, what, 85, 90% of the people out there, I mean, I interrupt you constantly, and it's not because I want so badly to hear myself being heard. It's just that I just always think you're almost done. You pause a lot. But anyway,
Do I really?
you do pause a lot.
Okay.
But what I'm getting at is that there are all of these fucking people, and most of the time when somebody's reading a paper or talking or whatever, they're not actually fucking listening anyway. They're just sitting there fucking developing their comeback in their head. What it is that they want to be said. And it's wrong. It's wrong for so many reasons. I mean, even if there's nothing for you to get out of it, it's wrong. Because then there's no value in that communication. And maybe that's the entire fucking problem right there, is that communication no longer is what it once was, because everybody just wants.
They're waiting for their turn to speak.
Yeah.
That's that's an interesting point because people do not, because to listen you have to be able to shut your mind off enough of your own, I mean, you still have to be interpreting the other person, but you have to be able to allow yourself to be sort of like covered by their thought, so that you take it on and you appropriate it. I think that's I think maybe some of those mushroom clinics, they might help some people with that, but we need a lot more mushrooms, and we really need to hit up like maybe we get some DMT and get like Jeff Bezos, like put, have and fuck up his brain and fuck up the Facebook guy's brain, and just get all the world leaders together and just, have them have like a mind-blowing experience to where they realize that they need to learn to oh, Modi's talking now, so I'm gonna turn my thoughts off and let his thoughts run over me.
I'm pretty sure with as much money as those guys have, they shut off their brain probably fairly frequently. And if we just get rid of all those guys, then fuck. Then we're just left with the assholes that can't do anything anyway, even if they wanted to.
It is kind of a paradox
Like
in that moment.
that fucking jerk off that was in your fucking, studies class, or not class, but group.
Yeah.
Just I don't understand people, and I understand, maybe if you felt like you know, you were stepped over or passed aside or treated wrongly because of, your race, then maybe you have something to say, but most of the people that are saying shit aren't those people.
Well, no doubt that circumstance, like everybody that's there is pretty pretty decent minded people, pretty thoughtful people. A lot. I mean, but whatever. The bigger point is more. I mean, to what you're saying. Like it will be difficult to have any real concrete civic space functioning if people don't have the desire and then have the know-how. Like you're saying, like we all want the same thing, and I know that I can't do this by myself. So I'm gonna bring what I have to the table with these other people, and I'll throw what I have out there, but I'll list, I'll shut my mind down long enough to see what it is that that person thinks, and we'll see if we can fit these social jigsaw pieces together a little bit better. But there is no. What do you think the listening? Do you think that there was a point in history where people were capable of listening to each other better? I mean, I don't think that we've ever really been. I think that the waiting for your turn to speak, like going through the, not even listening, like you get to this point in your conversation and you say, communism, and then my brain starts going, and that's what I'm going. Wait, I'm going to say, like people have been horrible about that for a long time.
Probably. I mean, people are just basically the same fucking dipshit people that they have been for hundreds and hundreds of years. But I think at some point it had to be better, because, and I know this is going to offend all of the mothers that are out there, but at one time, a kid should be seen and not heard, I mean, so it wasn't like we encouraged all of these kids to say a bunch of stuff. And I think at that time, that was when you said, you don't interrupt. You don't do this. That's rude. And I'm not saying that everything they did back then was right, but now they just let these fucking kids have whatever the fuck they want whenever the fuck they want it. And so a lot of them are the little entitled shits that
The participation trophy kids.
yeah, that we're talking about, where they don't feel like they have to listen. They didn't listen to their mom or their dad. They didn't listen to their grandma. They didn't listen to anybody. So why would they listen to somebody that might be saying something that was important? And if you go back to Ben Franklin's time, I'm pretty sure that all of those kids, if they knew how to read and write, that's what they were doing. They weren't speaking. And I don't think that that's the whole way to go, but I mean, there's got to be some of it, because now they just let them do whatever, and they have for a long time. And it really started with Gen X. I mean, that was where it started fucking going downhill, where, oh, well, I I didn't break that clock. That clock fell off the wall. Well, did you run into the wall? Did you jump up and down? What made it do that just all of a sudden?
Just jumped off.
I don't know. I just did it. Okay, well, they were real good at blaming others and not taking the blame themselves, and that's kind of where it started and probably went downhill. And at a fucking rapid rate, because we can't talk anymore. And I try to talk to some of these fucking dildos that are, in their, I don't know, mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Worthless, dude. They're all fucking worthless.
So you're missing the counter over at the gas station right now, then, huh? I have to talk to him all the time. I had this little girl come in, right? She might have been. She was 21 years old. Like, I don't know. She was very young, right? And she comes up to me and she says, "I need to get my mail going in the right direction." And I'm like, "Okay, so did you submit a change of address?" She said, "Yeah, we filled out that green slip that went in the mailbox." I said, "That's not a change of address, ma'am. That's a vacant card, you know." She's like, "But that was supposed to change my address." I was like, "No, that was not actually ever going to change your address." And I said, "Why don't you let me look at your ID and I'll go see if you have a change of address in the system going to where it is that you say you live right there." She said, "But I already did that." And I said, "No." I said, "You didn't." I was like, I'm pretty good at this game and filling out the green vacant form that you put back in your. I know exactly what you're talking about, you know. And the whole time she was completely incapable of ever getting anything out of my. She had assumed that she had completed this process and I even told her, I said, "This is a change of address. This is what you need to fill out." And she's like, "But I already did the other one." And I was like, "Just let me see your ID." And she said, "Why can't you just get my mail to go where it's supposed to go?"
So you went back and forth with her 3 or 4 times,
And
probably before
yeah,
she ever started to even
she said, "You
acknowledge
know
it.
what? I'll deal with this later. I'm just gonna go." And she started crying and she started walking out. And I said, "Stop." I said, "I can help you." I said, "You just need to trust that I know what I'm talking about." And she just walked away crying. I was very nice. I was not. I mean,
I wasn't
uh,
accusing you
no,
of
no,
being
no.
an
But
asshole or anything.
it's just. But she, yeah, that like there's this. Maybe it's because of the way that they interact with computers and the internet and whatnot, where you think, you have this picture of the way that you think something works in your head, and you cannot dislodge that. It's like absolute, even though it doesn't reflect anything that's happening in real like space time at all.
No, it's fucking sad. And again, I don't know, like, because even from the time I went from elementary school to high school, things had definitely changed. And by the time I got out of high school, they changed things entirely. I mean, like, I know for 2 years after I left high school, they went to a fucking pass fail grading system.
Oh, at Littleton, it wasn't exactly a pass fail. I was the one, the outcome based education stuff that they were doing before they had the back to basics vote, and they got rid of all that stuff. It went for 2 years, and I was a guinea pig the year that I came in. Of course, I didn't go to class at all, so I mean, I was not a very good guinea pig for them.
Not at all.
But they had like these. It was interesting, to be perfectly honest with you. They had these like 27 things, and you had to finish like 18 of them or something like that. And they were things that demonstrated that you understood things about reading and writing and math and science. There was like a lobbying one, that you'd have to like successfully do like a 12-minute lobbying presentation over a specific topic. You'd have to submit paperwork, with regards to what it was that you were lobbying on. A lot of it was really interesting, but it was very weird. It was not at all. And it would have been right about the time that you were gone.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying is that they've changed it. And now, like you said, the participation medals, none of these kids have to compete against anybody. So we've just taken them all and isolated each individual one and made them feel oh so special.
But that's got to be why people can't talk, because they don't. In a world like that, you're God. You're the only one that matters. And if you decide to allow someone else to matter, you can let them matter. But other than that, you're special. You're a rare snowflake. And everybody should coddle you and treat you like you're the best thing since ever.
You are not a unique snowflake. Okay, so we're coming up on 50 minutes now. I don't think we necessarily came to any answers,
I think that we got into the question though pretty well.
but I think we did kind of ask the question maybe a little bit better. I still don't necessarily see myself as either. Um, But it is important to ask the question, because now that I started talking about the community thing again, and I don't know, maybe my brain's all fucked up because I'm thinking about that more and more lately. But
Well, I
you
can
know,
tell
because
you your brain's fucked up.
we talked about it in the last episode, and then
Talked about what?
the community thing.
Like, what did we talk about the community thing in the last episode?
How the post office was part of the general store and
okay,
church,
like the small town kind of weirdness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever. I mean, let us know what you guys think if you want. You know where to reach us. Shortbusdebateclub@yahoo.com or 720-334.
Roll.
And on Wednesday we are going to do Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2022 induction, and then Friday I still think we're doing American Indian Child. I don't know, Aqua.
They're fucking with
ACWA.
They're trying to take the kids away.
So we'll see you in a couple of days. You guys have a good night.
Later.
Talk to you later.